this meditation. Let's just relax right where we're at. Relax, release, and let go. Focusing on the breath, we relax the body. Just allowing any tension to flow out and away. Our minds by releasing any worries or concerns. And we set the spirit free by letting go of any grievances. Say to yourself, I am free. I am free. I am unlimited. I am free. I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. See yourself free, all burdens set aside. All mistakes corrected. All error amended. Get a picture of someone in your mind who you are close to. Behold Christ in them. See through any past behavior. See through what you may think of as their assets or their defects. See through to the face of Christ. Witness that glory. See that truly you love them. And they love you. It is comforting. And now think of someone who you may not see very much, occasionally. You really have no strong feelings about them one way or another. Someone you just pass occasionally. There's a checker in the grocery store, a server at lunch. And see the face of Christ in them. And feel yourself loving them. Feel them loving you. Now you can picture someone you have a problem with, someone you really don't like. You may even think you hate them. Oh yeah, that's them right there. Behold the Son of God in them. Oh. Is that too much? Don't let any perceived defects obscure the holy light in them. See the face of Christ in them. And say to them in your mind, may you be happy. May you be at peace. May you be free from sin. Know right now that this is love and that you are loving them. And that regardless of any appearance, they are loving you. And we pray, Father, Mother, God, I would behold the gentleness in all those who come in front of me today. Let me behold the loveliness instead of my illusions. He, she in front of me is what I am. And I would see them so I can see myself. Today I want to see them truly. And this day I may at last identify with all. We say amen and amen. Oh, it's a darn shame.
In the blame game.
It's a darn shame, that blame game. We've been playing it. We've been playing it. You don't stop that. I used to live in a cramped house with confusion and pain. But then I met the friend and started getting drunk and singing all night. Confusion and pain started acting nasty, making threats with talk like this, if you don't stop that, you don't stop all that fun, we're leaving. If you want to learn secrets, your heart must forget about shame. Your heart must forget about shame and dignity. And remember that you are God's lover. Yet you worry what people are saying. It was roomy. Right? The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. So all of this I sent out this morning. I think I said, what did I say? Accountable? Is that what I sent? Accountable? Yeah. Accountable. So we talk a little bit about accountability and how that fits in this idea of blame and shame, guilt. What the heck? We lost the program. Whose fault is that?
I'll take the blame.
It blew it off. Right? So there's this principle. Well, maybe I'll preface a little bit by this. We have decided. I'm going to just assume that you decided with me. All right? We've decided that we have a purpose. That we have a purpose, an ultimate purpose of service. Whether or not we think we are doing a great job at it or not, we've decided that we have this purpose, that we want to be of service. We may have some specific things that we want to be of service with. We may have already come to the conclusion that it's best if we try to be of service in all things. But we may have some specific tasks, some specific volunteer stuff, some places where we go and give our service intentionally. And as we do that, we have to congregate with other people. I mean, there's just no escaping it anyway. Even if you decide to be a hermit and go live in the desert, all the ghosts of your past go with you. You can't even be alone there. All of those faces from the past, good and bad, whatever the experience might have been. So anyway, but in our pursuit of service, am I okay here?
Just chasing you.
Okay, all right. So in this pursuit of service and our coming together, because we've already discussed this, that we really are in this together. So now as we practice, as we go to our various places where we give our service, there's these people that we have to interact with. And this can be the training ground for us to realize that it doesn't even matter if we're somewhere where we have the intention of being of service. Wherever we go, we have people that we have to interact with. So I'm going to suggest today that we start thinking of them as our fellow committee members. Everywhere we go, everyone we meet, they are on the committee with us. It's kind of a different way to be looking at things, right? We see when we do this, as we've done maybe for some time, when we get involved with various organizations and we're giving service in that organization, there are people there who have, shall I say, different personalities. Some of them are difficult. Some of them we find trying. Some of them like we really enjoy their company. And others seem to be distant and foreboding. Some may seem to be, well, maybe smarter or more knowledgeable, have, maybe seem to have a higher rank. The first thing that I want us to do in this pursuit of service is to get rid of the hierarchy in our minds. We may actually be involved in an organization that has a hierarchy. They may even publish it. They may put it up. They may have a sign up and it says on there, President. And then people come down, and this is the hierarchy of downward flowing shite. This is it. And this is the commands come from on high and drift down. And what happens many, many times is so does the blame. The one on high looks down and casts blame for mistakes. And many, many times, very sparse and spare compliments. But the blame, you always hear about the mistakes for sure. You're always going to hear about, the things that didn't go right. In a good organization, that organizational chart is pulled flat. It doesn't mean that the person who is the president of the company doesn't guide. It doesn't mean that the people that we would think of as higher authority don't do jobs as leaders to give direction. What it means is when we get that organizational chart flat, it brings the equality in that we were talking about last week. It brings equality into the community, whatever it might be. Whatever, if it's an organization, if it's a company, if we get rid of this idea in our mind that this person, because what happens is fear and resentment will generate no matter what. If we keep this separation, I can remember when our company failed and I had to take a job in Chicago, and I met with the president of the company and I treat him like an equal. And he treated me like an equal. And I would come at first, and when I first started doing it, it was we had this great thing going on. It was great. Had no issues whatsoever. And when I would go into the office in Chicago, I would go in there once a week. I go right in his office and say, listen, when we get done with the meeting, let's go to lunch. And he would say, oh yeah, great, yeah, we'll do that. And then when we get ready to go to lunch, I'd say, well, Mike probably want to come to lunch with us. And I didn't realize what was going on, but the president looks at me and said, oh no, come on, we just us. Well, Mike was actually my boss, right? And so then I said to Mike, I said, well, Mike, how come you don't come to lunch with us? He says, I'm not his peer. This seemed weird to me. But then I got it. Like he was saying, we are separated. There's a gap between us. I cannot be familiar like that with him. Well, so what was the difference? I was actually really, according to the organizational chart, I'm 2 steps down. The president of the company is happy to go to lunch with me. But he doesn't want to go to lunch, and I really believe that this is the mindset. Now, I believe that the president, later on, there were some other things that went wrong with the whole thing, but this was really an interesting lesson to me, was that it has a whole lot to do with how you act, how people interact. It has a whole lot to do. So I didn't even think anything of it, right? I just thought, hey, everybody likes to go to lunch, right? I mean, this is, of course. But then I find out that there's like unwritten rules about this in this particular organization. I don't even know who unwrote them. So I just know that when we have this power within us, and it's the strength that we talk about in the recovery programs. It's the strength we talk about in the 8th step. It's the strength that allows us to take responsibility for our lives. And this strength is not some overpowering, overbearing, boastful kind of pushing our way through. The strength is quiet confidence. It's quiet confidence that does not arise from the ego. It's quiet confidence that arises from knowing who we are and not having to try to be something else. really arising from true humility. So it's not an ego exercise, but it's this quiet, where people just know you're okay, that you're okay with yourself. And that being okay with yourself, it's attractive. This is a dating tip, by the way, for anybody who's looking for one. Quiet confidence carries the day and gets the date. So, this confidence, this acceptance of ourselves, is the ability then later, as we said in the 8th step, we take responsibility for our lives. So now I'm involved in service and I'm working with these people and I'm doing everything I can to see us all as equal. We're in this thing, we're working towards an end, and then something goes wrong. Something happens. Doesn't turn out the way that we wanted it to turn out. And so what's the first thing that happens? Blame. Blame jumps up. Fear. Trepidation. Ooh, I wonder if I'm going to get blamed. Right? But when we have this quiet confidence, when we can rely on the strength of God in us, not the strength of God coming to us from the clouds, the strength of God in us, when we can rely on that, we can just relax and say, wait a minute, what happened? Let's just say what happened. This is what happened. A mistake was made. It was an error. If it was my mistake or part of my mistake, my response would be to say, yes, this is where I went wrong. Let me try not to do that again, right? So it's the same way as when we make a good amend. We say, when I did this, when I did that, I was wrong. What can I do to make up for it? Instead, everybody's scrambling for cover. Everybody's trying to figure out how it's somebody else's fault. Look, oh no, they wouldn't have done this. It was a supplier. It was a supplier. It was the customer. It was raining. It was somebody's fault, but not mine. This is silly. Because look, even when we do it, this is where guilt and shame comes from. We know within that we played a certain part in the whole situation. And when we try to avoid that, it just kind of festers in there. It's an embarrassment. And we know, even though nobody might be saying it, we know that other people know. And this adds to the problem. So shame and blame. So look, it's not just an individual problem, it's an organizational problem. If the organization fosters fear and doesn't allow people to make mistakes, here's what we want to do when we're being of service. And we think about it in terms of maybe in NA, when we give service, think about this idea that we are freely giving what was given to us, and so is everyone else involved with us. So this is like this free interchange, what we'd like to call love, but sometimes it's not. But it's this free flow of this energy between us. And so when we sit and take someone else's inventory on what they're not doing right, or sit and take a bad inventory on ourselves saying, oh, well, they think this and that about me, they're freezing me up. Either way, it's no good for us. Flatten out the organizational chart. When we give somebody a task to do as part of our service, we give them the authority and the responsibility to do the task, but we don't abandon them. We still stand ready to step in if they need some help, but we don't micromanage them. We let them do. We let them do. And if things don't go right, we understand we were all involved. We are all in this together. And it's not just, we don't just say, well, Billy, man, Billy, man up. No. No. And I'm talking about all the way down to if the money in the treasury gets stolen. We're all complicit. We're all complicit. We let that happen because we weren't looking right. We weren't, first of all, shouldn't be too much money in the treasury anyway. We should be sending that on to somebody else. So, if we are promoting a culture of openness and equality, then we won't get ourselves into these positions where we think we have to blame and then, of course, go with some shame ourselves. So what is, Rumi has something to say about this. He says, first of all, he says, the art of knowing is knowing what to ignore. So, and this is one of the things that the Course in Miracles talks about all the time, is that when sin seems to happen, or you call it mistakes, when error occurs, see through it. See through it. And as you see through it, you'll see the different, like, they're almost like curtains hanging down. When you go past the sin part, you see all these different gradations of fear which caused the error in the first place. And as you keep looking, all of that parts, and the light of Christ stands behind it all. This is the art of forgiveness, to see through all of the shades that we draw down over reality. And this is the other thing that Rumi says about this. And you think this is a beautiful thing. He says, run from what is comfortable. Live where you fear to live. Destroy your reputation. What? Be notorious. And this whole thing is about, he's not talking about being hurtful. He is talking about do what other people get upset about because they're trying to get in your business. He's saying go out there and do what you are called to do regardless of what your neighbors may talk about. Don't go along to get along, right? And then when those things do go wrong, we got this simple thing that we talk about over and over again. We admit that we made a mistake. When something goes wrong, hey, going wrong, that doesn't mean that if somebody disagrees with us, that doesn't mean if somebody disapproves of us, that means when someone was harmed. If someone was harmed, then we take responsibility. We're accountable for that. But that's different than blame. Blame is always attached to shame. There is no way to get around it. When we blame someone, we are trying to shame them. We're trying to put some kind of a stain upon them. When we hold people accountable, what we're doing, we're enabling them. We are empowering them. We're holding them accountable. We're saying, yes, this is an error. You made an error, fix it. But also we're holding the door open so that if they need help fixing it, they can ask for it. We put them in a position where all they can do is say, okay, I quit. I give up. Can't do this. You need to figure out a way. You need to figure out a way to help them do it and still allow them to be accountable. Carl Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. When we think about this, this really is the essence of what we talk about of this true humility that I've already mentioned this morning. The idea of being able to be ourselves without acting like something else. And it includes all sorts of things. When we think about it at the core of it, and we've talked about this before, at the core of it, we know that who we really are is spirit. At the core of it, we know that who we really are, at least this is what we're trying to get our minds around, that we are son, daughter, child of God. That this is the essence of it. And so, you can't get better than that, so there's no reason. But on the other hand, really being humble is also to be able to admit to and own our errors. To be able to admit to those defects of character that have been causing us suffering and the suffering of others. This is part of the humility. And this is what Jung was talking about, to be able to accept that without excuses. Without saying, well, you know what, if I wouldn't have grown up in an abusive household, I wouldn't be this way. Or whatever other excuse that we have. To accept ourselves as we are. And it also includes to accept the good things, to accept our strengths, to accept our strengths and not run from them, to be able to take a compliment without dissembling. Without saying, oh no, that was nothing. Bree Brown, she's great. I heard her on the radio a couple times. She says, empathy is the antidote to shame. Empathy, the antidote to shame. It's the antidote to us shaming someone else, and it's the antidote to us accepting shame. It's to realize, again, to be able to feel the other, to be able to feel the other's feeling, right? The two most powerful words that when we're in a struggle is, me too. When we see someone else is struggling, we say, me too. When we're struggling, we say, me too. Wayne Dyer, years ago. Wayne Dyer used to steal all my stuff, and then he put a book out and make money on it. This is not right. He's passed on now. He had so many smart things to say. He says, everything that has happened to you, you can either feel sorry for yourself or treat what has happened as a gift. Everything is either an opportunity to grow or an obstacle to keep you from growing. You get to choose. I'm going to end with this little piece right here. What is sin? This is sin. This is the thing. We've been brought up. Sinners all. This is the message of Western Christianity. Well, Eastern Christianity too, mostly. Sinners all. Not one of us deserving of the grace of God. This is the message. You don't deserve it, but if you ask Jesus to come into you, you get it. No. Sin is insanity. It is the means by which the mind is driven mad and seeks to let illusions take the place of truth. And being mad, it sees illusions where truth should be. Sin gave the body judging eyes. For what is there in the sinless to behold? What need have they for sights and sounds or touch? What would they hear or reach or grasp? What would they sense at all? To sense is not to know. Of course, this whole piece is about seeing that the body is just this prison in which we continually suffer by our own choice. Truth can but be found with knowledge and nothing else. The body is an instrument the mind made in its effort to deceive itself. Its purpose is to strive. Yet can the goal of striving change? And now, this is the key to just turn this whole thing. And now the body serves a different aim for striving. What it seeks now is chosen by the aim the mind has taken as the replacement for the goal of self-deception. Truth can be its aim, as well as lies. The senses then will seek instead for witnesses to what is true.